Nicastro from what the Sick podcast, Yin's Sick or Crazy Sick, something. I don't know. I feel like it's changed a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your show, kind of what you guys have been doing. You got a lot of good stuff coming out, a lot of new show news for you. So give us a little spiel about your show, what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. First of all, always like your work. Guys are really really good at what you do, and you're going to continue growing. That's for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit confusing. Our podcast is the Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy. We work with the Sick Media team. You can subscribe. Just type in Steelers Crazy on YouTube. That'll come up. Done a lot of cool things this off season. Had some pretty big guests on. Guys like Ogunjobi all the way to Nick Herbig and so on and so forth. So make sure you check that out. And then we still have our cool blog, yinzercrazy.com, if you want to, ever read up on some stuff that we're writing, some of my thoughts that are more pen to paper type deal. So check those out. But yeah, I appreciate you allowing me to plug those. And thanks for catching up. Let's chat.
Yeah, of course. So let's start with the hometown Steelers, right? It's kind of your expertise, it's what everybody really wants to know about anyway. And I talked in the first segment a little bit about how I thought Kenny Pickett kind of looking back to when he was drafted, right? I said he's going to be a little bit of a lower ceiling player, right? He's come in same building, right? Same practice facility, same stadium, right? 4-year starter, 3-year starter in college, right? A lot of games under his belt. We're going to see pretty quickly like this is about what he is, kind of like a Mac Jones, where it's like this is what it is. This is kind of what we're rolling with for now, right? He's not Anthony Richardson who's going to develop for 4 years, but this preseason, and I know it's only preseason. But is there a chance that his ceiling is higher than we thought? Like, what are you hearing and what are you seeing through the Steelers organization about Kenny Pickett?
I think it's definitely higher than Mac Jones' ceiling. That's for sure. If you want to just compare those two guys, I still don't think he can be an elite guy. I really don't. I don't see him ever being in the Joe Burrow conversation, the Josh Allen conversation, the Mahomes, right? The elites of the AFC that you're going to have to go through. But I've always said he is a quarterback that can win with a good team around him. And, there's still something to be said for that. He, listen, I'm not going to proclaim him NFL MVP because of 5 preseason drives. I'm really not. And I was generally higher on Pickett than most, I think, last season, but it's almost flipped now, right? We're getting a lot of folks saying, hey, sleeper MVP candidate. And I'm kind of like, all right, pump the brakes a little bit, guys. Like he played the equivalent of essentially one half of football this preseason. Now, he still looked great, and it's better to look great than look like crap in the preseason. So there's still something to be said for that. I think his ceiling maybe is a little bit higher. I still think he's a really high floor player. I don't think you're ever going to see a 7 touchdown, 9 interception season out of him again. I think he'll always be somewhere in that 20 touchdown, 10 interception type range, which is a good touchdown to INT ratio. I keep making the Trevor Lawrence year 1 to year 2 comp. Trevor Lawrence, really bad first year, kind of had a disaster down there with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. Threw more interceptions than touchdowns, just didn't look very good. We were all quite surprised by that. I think he can make a Lawrence type leap in year 2. And then Lawrence was great last year and obviously got the Jags in the playoffs. I think he had I don't remember, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, something like that. I think Kenny can get to that stat line and make the playoffs and have that kind of big second-year leap. But I don't think he has the ceiling of Trevor Lawrence when it's all said and done. I think I've comped him to a couple guys in the past. I really like the Alex Smith comparison. When you first hear that, when you first hear that, you're kind of like, yuck. That's generally the takeaway when you hear Alex Smith.
He's the first overall pick, though.
So that's why people think yuck, is because you almost want to think of him as this bust, check down Charlie or whatever you want to call it, or people remember him for tearing up his leg at the end of his season. But if you really take a deep dive into it, he is a 3-time Pro Bowler, made it to an NFC Championship game with the 49ers, almost won, got the Super Bowl. I think he's one of 6 players in NFL history with I can't remember the exact stat, but it's like him, John Elway, Aaron Rodgers, Donovan McNabb, and one other guy that has X amount of pass and rush yards in the NFL. Yeah. So he played a really good career, long career, and was a guy who could win a lot of games with a good team around him, didn't turn it over a lot, was mobile. I see a lot of similarities there. Never had the strongest arm, but you can win a Super Bowl with a guy like that at the end of the day. And so does he have the highest ceiling in the world, to answer your question? No, I still don't think that's changed a whole lot. But I think he can. I think he can be a good quarterback at this level for sure.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said with the rookie contract too, right? I mean, because he's not ever going to be top of the league. No, he's not going to be a top five quarterback. But when you can put the pieces around him that need to be around him, I think that can, in turn, kind of propel him and make him look a little bit better than he actually is.
I think I said that with was that last week talking about the Jared Goff, before he got paid in Los Angeles, right? Jeff Fisher, it's a little rough. Gets McVay. He kind of pops a
Yeah.
little bit while he's under that rookie deal. They could load it up. But to kind of pivot here, to me, Broderick Jones and the O line, kind of I don't want to say like the whole season hinges upon them, but I do think they are the key to the season. Kind of like the Jets, they're a lot better than the Jets, and they're not quite as dependent on the O line. But I do think if the line plays well, we could be looking at an 11, 12 win team. If not, 7, 8, 9 feels about right. Am I crazy there? Is that hyperbolic to say that it could be a 12 win team if that offensive line is anywhere between 8 and 12 in the league?
Nah, you're not crazy at all. Part of the reason Pickett and the first team offense have looked so damn good this preseason is because they are being well protected. And obviously, quite frankly, that's just something we didn't see in the last couple of years. Going back to Ben's final year when Kevin Colbert decided to draft Kendrick Green to be his starting center in his
Rough.
final year before retirement. So they've been overhauling this thing for 2 consecutive years. It honestly started in free agency with Isaac Samalo. This
Huge get.
dude is one of the most unheralded best signings I think in all of football this season. He's not going to get a lot of fanfare, but ultimately could be the reason why the Steelers do get to that 11 win mark because he's just such a good player, a road grader, a real leader. You go back to last year even with James Daniels and Mason Cole, another year in this system, two really consistent players as well who are not snapping the head over there, snapping the ball over the quarterback's head consistently.
Right.
And then I think you feel pretty comfortable with Chooks at right tackle, and you're right, that left tackle spot is going to probably determine how far they go ultimately. They're going to start with Dan Moore Jr., it feels like, out there in week 1 and week 2 against potentially Nick Bosa. We'll see if he plays. I know he's a little bit hurt. And then Myles Garrett in week 2. Let him maybe take his lumps before they throw Broderick Jones into the fire. But I think the competition has been healthy for both of them. It sounds like Dan Moore has vastly improved, and he ultimately could make his way to right tackle at some point. And Broderick Jones, we know the natural talent, the tools, the skill set. It's all there. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to click. Will be in time for the Steelers to make a deep playoff run? Let's hope so. But I have them around a 10, 11 win team myself. And I think, the offensive line, for that to happen, yeah, the offensive line has to be better. And I think they will.
Yeah, that's fair. Mike, if I said, give me a player on the roster that you think the general public, they're not on. They don't get it, but that is going to make an immediate impact. I would say Calvin Austin, but I think a lot of people understand the raw talent, the speed, the physical traits that are there with Calvin Austin. Is there anybody that stands out to you where it's like nobody's talking about this guy? They might not even start, but they're going to rotate in and be, a factor week 1, week 1 through 18.
It's a good question because obviously, all about your stars. There's a name that came to mind that I haven't talked much about yet on any podcast, really, or nobody's talked about recently. And that name is Keanu Neal. It seems like he really, dropped off in Steelers fans' eyes after the Quan Alexander signing. People were kind of like, all right, Keanu Neal, this Swiss Army knife who could play in the box and who also has a pretty high pedigree and can do some things, covering as well back there at safety. And then you sign Quan Alexander and you're like, oh my God, the Steelers got this athletic freak who can do all these things. But, they already kind of had a version of that to a degree. And Keanu Neal, who, like I said, is initially was, potentially signed back there to be Terrell Edmonds' replacement, a physical safety who can really tackle, who can, like I said, he's going to make some hits this year whenever he's healthy where you're like, oh my God, like that was insane. That's an old school Madden hit stick. That's like a you got jacked up segment from
I missed
Chris
that.
Burns
I missed
days.
that segment.
Yeah, we had to outlaw that, man, because of concussion protocol and whatnot. But that wasn't that a wild segment. Go back and watch some clips of that. But
That was great.
he's a hard hitter. He's gonna make some big plays. I think he's just being overshadowed right now by some of the other guys on defense who are getting the fanfare. Nick Herbig, Quan Alexander. Like, these are the guys that we're talking about right now. But, yeah, I mean, the first handful of games, I'll just go out on a limb. I'll say he'll make a big play, maybe a big forced fumble that turns the tide of a game, and hopefully we remember this conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's huge in the run or the run support too. And
Yeah.
just trying to nip that in the bud as much as possible, keep teams off the ground.
Yeah. All right, let's pop outside of Pittsburgh for the last couple questions here. Trey Lance to the Cowboys. For me, it kind of makes sense in terms of Dallas, right? Dak's contract, it feels like we just had the whole, Dak's first contract debate, where it's like, do you pay him? He pays him late. And now we're already probably another year away from another contract debate with Dak, but he has a no-tag clause, right? So he's got all the leverage. Is this Dallas kind of trying to gain some leverage back, take a flyer on a guy who they liked coming out, but it was just too much to be able to get him in terms of assets, draft capital, all that? What's your take on that from both Dallas and San Francisco's perspective?
Yeah, well, from the 49ers perspective, it makes a lot of sense. He wasn't going to play this year. Brock Purdy is firmly entrenched there, and it's such a distinct level play style drop off between Purdy and Lance that if he did get hurt, they want to go to Darnold because he's like a Purdy light type deal. That also has nothing to do with how badly they botched it, honestly, because you've seen the list of players the Dolphins have received because of that trade. It's like Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, Zach Hall of Famers, Zach Thomas. No, I'm just kidding. But Jason Taylor.
Yeah.
It's like Dan Marino.
Dan Marino, yeah. Might as well.
How many we could think of. Yeah. But I mean, listen, some of that too is because Lance got hurt. So I don't want to put that all on 49ers or Lance being a bust. But yeah, from a Cowboys perspective, it's definitely at least to push Dak. It's to say like, hey, we see how this league is working now. It's Super Bowl or we're going to try again in terms of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Right? It's not always how it used to be. But you see teams like the Rams were a great example that you just mentioned. Jared Goff, perfectly fine quarterback, got them to a Super Bowl. They could have won if they beat the Patriots and scored some points in that game. And you know what they do? They ship them off because there was a better option out there that they wanted to try.
Right.
Look what the Cardinals are doing. Kyler Murray, good quarterback, right? Not going to win a Super Bowl with him, it doesn't look like. He's going to be gone. They're going to draft Caleb Williams after the season because
I said that in our newsletter. I put that out. I said people think I'm crazy. If by week 11 he's ready to come back and they're 2-9, I'm telling you, they're not bringing him back. They're just going to say, hey, take the season off, go play COD, we'll draft Caleb Williams.
Yep, and he'll be happy to do that. But
Probably.
Yeah, I mean that's what's happening with Dak right now. I think if he plays well, obviously, and they win a lot of games and get close, it's a good problem to have. But I think if they go out whimpering and he throws a lot of picks like last year, you start to hear the drama and the controversy, and before you know it, it's like, does Dak say, I want to be traded? I'm kind of sick of this. Give me a new start. And are the Cowboys kind of like secretly happy about that because they acquired Lance? We'll see. I mean, I think first and foremost, it's just, hey, we notice right now what's going on. Like, we know we want to put some pressure on you. You need to throw less picks. We need to advance further. And if you don't, we're ready to move on and give this kid a shot. So it's just the new NFL, man. And it's something that Steeler fans talked about last year with Kenny Pickett. Like, if he comes out and listen, he looks fantastic. I think he's going to be the quarterback here for a long time. But if he's terrible this season, like, you already got to start thinking about it again, don't you? It's just the league we're in, man.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last question here. Any big predictions? Let's hear it. I don't know if you released your Super Bowl predictions yet, but maybe some dark horse teams, teams that kind of fall flat that you think everybody's on. Like, for me, the Jets, I don't see them being that good. The offensive line is really bad, and I think outside of Garrett Wilson, the receiving core is pretty weak as well. So that's kind of like my fall flat team. Like, who are some of your bold predictions as we kind of get close to the season? We've been writing in pencil all summer, trying to start inking some things in there. What are your big predictions?
I love it. Luke, listen, I'm ready to go all Stephen A. Smith versus Skip Bayless with Tim right now. All right?
I got
I'm ready to do it because I completely disagree on the Jets.
You think the Jets?
Completely disagree. And I hate that I disagree because I hate rooting for them. I have some friends who are just New Yorkers who think they're going to win the Super Bowl every single year, and I don't like rooting for them. I think they're going to be really good, and I hate that they're going to be really good. And the reason I think they're going to be good is because it reminds me very much so of this, of what happened with the Rams when they were close and acquired Stafford, when the Bucs when they were close and acquired Brady. Granted, their offensive lines are better, of course. That's your
I was
key
just
going
to say. I mean, you had Andrew Whitworth, Tristan Wirfs ended up becoming the best right tackle in football for the Bucs.
Of course, Of course. And listen, that's probably the reason ultimately where I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. However, this is a team last year that beat the Steelers with Zach Wilson, that could have easily still made the playoffs with Mike White, right? They bring in a guy that I still think is very good. Aaron Rodgers last year fell off a little bit. He was unhappy. His best receiver, too, at the end of the day was Christian Watson. He was MVP twice 2 years before that. So they bring in a quarterback who's a substantial upgrade to a team that almost made the playoffs. I think Garrett Wilson is going to be phenomenal this year. You bring Lazard over, who I think can still play. That defense is still exceptional over there. Sauce Gardner. The offensive line is the big question mark, of course, and I think there's a little bit of that slow start that's going to happen with them because of how teams come together. But I think they catch fire at the end of the season, and I think they win the AFC East, which is a bold prediction. I think they beat Buffalo. There's one.
That is certainly a bold prediction. So their first 6 games, they face 6 to 7 top pass rushers in football. That's my concern. Those 6 games, if they can go 2-4, Mike, I think I'm with you in terms of they can compete for a playoff spot and maybe make some noise. I don't think they win the AFC East, but I do think they win 10, maybe 11 games if they go 2-4. There's a very real chance, though, that they go 1-5. That is a gauntlet. I mean, the easiest game's the Patriots. They haven't beat the Patriots in 7 years.
They'll beat them. They stink.
I think so too, but it's not a given.
Bills, Cowboys, I see them splitting. I don't know which one they'll take, but they're going to split.
That's fair.
One of those two.
That's fair.
And then I know there's
the Eagles and the Chiefs.
They got the Chiefs and Eagles too, right?
Yeah,
both on the road.
Yeah,
both on the road. I thought one of those was.
I think one of them at home. I don't remember which one.
So 2-4 potentially. I think there's maybe a chance they go 3-3.
Yeah, they do.
I
could
see
Chiefs
2-4. I can see 2-4, the sky is falling type deal. But that AFC East is so good, they're all going to beat up on each other. And then I know, just because I've been looking at this schedule and arguing with some folks already, that down the stretch they have the Browns, they have the Commanders, they have some teams they'll beat down the stretch. I just see them getting hot later. Yeah, it has to. I see them getting hot later in the season and making a similar push that the Stafford Rams did, the Bucks Brady's did. It's just that formula to me where you have a really good, competitive, complete, close team without a good quarterback. And so I see that coming to fruition. All right. As for season-long predictions, I know we took a lot of time on the JETS. Right. I think the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the AFC North. The Bengals are still going to win the AFC North. I think 3 AFC North teams are going to make the playoffs. Baltimore is going to be in as well as a wild card. I have one more big-time bold prediction. I'm not sure how much we'll take in a debate here, but I think the Titans are going to win the AFC South. That's my other big-time bold prediction.
See, I would disagree.
I like the Jags.
But, I like the Jags a lot, yeah. I just think with that schedule, the Jags, I mean, they play 2 elite quarterbacks. They'll have a marked quarterback coach advantage in 15 of 17 games. That's why I like the Jags. I think on the flip side, most of the games the Titans are going to have a coach advantage. Quarterback, absolutely not. I think there's a very real possibility they'll pivot to either Levis or Malik Willis at some point, and I'm not sure they're ready for that step to win a division as a young quarterback. The culture, the defense, the run game, I can see how they'd be a dark horse. I would disagree though.
Yeah, just remember, fellas, 3 teams from each conference every year that didn't make the playoffs generally makes the playoffs. If we want to go down the line, Chiefs, Bengals, Jags, Bills, it sounds good, right? Ravens, it sounds good, but some shit is due to hit the fan. I'll quickly give my reasoning on the Titans. Like you said, really good coach. I agree. I never thought Tannehill was very good, but somehow Tannehill had them as the number 1 seed in the AFC 2 of the last 4 years.
That's fair.
They lost him last year. They still almost won the division if they win that last game against the Jags with Josh Dobbs. Henry's still going to be a beast. They're going to beat up on the Texans and Colts, so they're going to win 9 games, I think, regardless. It'll come down to 1 or 2 against Jacksonville, and it's like I said, it's bold for sure. But nobody saw the Seahawks playing well last year. The Eagles still kind of sprung out of nowhere last year, so I think they're being disrespected. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC, then they lost their quarterback and didn't make the playoffs, and now people think they're going to win 2 games. So
that is fair.
I threw some bold ones at you, so you got me on record.
Good. That's fair. That's good, Mike. We really appreciate the time. You're always well connected in terms of the Steelers and just well versed in anything really football related. So we always appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to do this again, hopefully mid-season or something, and kind of do an update, I guess, once we see the teams actually start playing out.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You say I'm well versed now. Wait until the Titans are like 1-10 and the Jets are 1-8.
Then I'll definitely make sure we got to have you back on
we're
that
not
for sure.
Take a victory lap of some sort.
Yeah.
No, you should if that's the case. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Check out Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy. Subscribe. We got a big announcement coming up. I'll throw that out there right now. So
Awesome.
everybody get ready.
Perfect.
Love it, man. Thanks so much.